So then who is free? I know I'm going off today. I'm being a little bit all over the place with my little tangents, but then who is free? There's a great story, Diogenes the Cynic and Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, the most powerful person of his time, was walking down the streets, maybe Corinth, I can't remember exactly. And Diogenes was this philosopher, brilliant, smart man, very Dionysian, I guess. I don't know if maybe Dionysian is not the right word, but he's a vagabond. He was homeless. He lived in a bathtub, and he went on the streets all day and tried to be as obnoxious as possible. He'd walk around naked. He'd try to make people uncomfortable. A lot like the Tyler Durden, actually, which is why I'm bringing him up. And Alexander the Great admired him for being a truly free man, because he answered to nobody. Diogenes answered to nobody. The famous story goes that Alexander walked up to Diogenes and looked at him and said, "Diogenes, ask of me anything, and if it's in my power, I'll give it to you." And Diogenes says, "There's something you could do for me. Move aside, the sun, you're blocking the sun." He's sun tanning. And Alexander laughs and says, if I could be anyone else but Alexander, I would be Diogenes. To which Diogenes was surprised, if I could be anyone but Diogenes, I'd also want to be Diogenes. So he's just this very free guy. So it goes into who is free, right? Alexander answered to nobody, kind of. He was at the top rung of society, but then he had to answer to his constituents. He had to appease different generals, different statesmen, right? Maybe Diogenes was a truly free person because he answered to nobody and he didn't care about anything. No morals or values stopped him from acting however he wanted. So which is interesting. Freedom. What is freedom? There's a brilliant poem that I want to read to you guys by Charles Bukowski. He's a well-known nihilist, a student of Nietzsche, and a famous writer, and a lot of people say he's the perfect example of an Übermensch, someone who creates their own values, who goes against the tide of humanity, and who creates dangerously. Albert Camus talks about the idea of creating dangerously, creating art that might piss people off, that doesn't necessarily satisfy people. That, like, you take a lot of artists who originally create raw music, but then they become mainstream to satisfy more people, to get more of an audience, to make more money. The Übermensch, someone who creates dangerously, who doesn't care, who creates art for the sake of art, not to make money, not to become famous.